Hey everyone, we're going to take a look at teaching our dogs to settle, whether it be on a mat or their dog bed. Whatever you choose works just fine. I had a surprisingly difficult time creating this video, mainly because my dogs already have a strong behavior in place for this, so it was hard for me to make sure that you're able to see the learning process. So please be sure to ask questions or post comments if you run into any trouble training this with your dogs. Okay, so here you can see I'm about to start a session with Jib. The most important thing is for you to have your treats ready and let your dog see you actually put the mat down. What will happen is because they see you put an object down, they will likely go directly to it, either to smell it or stand on it. I likely do this a little differently than some of you have learned in the past. As soon as your dog moves onto the mat, I want you to give them 3 or 4 treats just for being on the mat. Then I want you to move them off of the mat. You don't need to use a treat to do that. Just simply call them off the mat, pick the mat up, and put it back down. What this creates is all your dog's focus going towards the mat. Do this same process 3 or 4 times in your first training session. Then release your dog and pick the mat up to give them a break. I use my duration marker here, which is good because I'm rewarding directly to the dog rather than doing a cookie toss. I'm not asking for a sit-stay before I put the mat down because I want for my dog to be anxiously trying to get onto the mat. Okay, so here I'm just using a random pillow that Jib has never seen before, but I just wanted you guys to see the process, that I would do the same thing of creating a reinforcement zone of when I put something down, if you go to it, you will get rewarded. This is the very initial stage of creating value towards the bed or mat. When you are done a training session, be sure to pick the mat up and put it away so that your dog is not able to go to it when you're not paying attention. All right, so once you feel that your dog is anxiously paying attention to you putting the mat down and trying to get to it, you can start to increase your criteria to this stage of training. What I'm doing here is releasing Jib off of the mat and seeing if he chooses to go back to it. I do not pick it up in between each rep this time. He is still getting lots of reinforcement for choosing to go to the mat, 3 or 4 rewards each time. When I release him off, he gets nothing. As soon as he chooses to go back, he gets reinforced. Here I just simply ended the training session with a cookie toss and picked the mat up. Okay, so now we're going to see if Jib really knows that going to the mat is what's getting reinforced. So you can see now I toss a cookie off, and then when he goes back to it, I mark it with a yes and do a cookie toss off the mat to make sure that he knows to go back to the mat. Here you can see I'm just doing it a little bit differently, where I actually reward him going to the mat, and then I use a cookie toss to get him off to make sure that he knows to go to the mat. It will really depend on the level of what your dog is doing and if they are committed to going to the mat, but you can change this up from time to time. I still have not added a cue at this point. Until my dog is reliably going to the mat and showing the end behavior that I want, I will not add a cue. So the end behavior that I want is actually my dog lying down on the mat. So I'm going to continue now to work through getting a sit and a down on the mat. And I do this through shaping. I will post a video on shaping specifically so that you know exactly what I mean. But I try to get Jib to offer the behavior rather than me telling him what to do. If at any point throughout the training your dog goes to the mat and sits or lies down, definitely reward that. In the end, what we want is your dog to go to their mat and lie down. So the cue should be on your mat, your dog goes over and lies on their mat. So because that's the end behavior we want, be sure to reward it if it happens throughout the training process. You can add your verbal cue once your dog is reliably going to their mat and lying down.